Hi everyone, this is Elena of the Witches Box, and I'm here today with another episode of Witch Booktube, and we are talking today about Witches, Heretics, and Warrior Women by Phoenix Lefae. So I hinted at this book last week when I talked about Warrior Magic by Tomas Prower, because that book and this book were paired together in our February Witches Book Box mailing. We also wonderfully had both Phoenix Lefae and Tomas Prower join us for our live Witches Book Coven gathering that month, and it was really quite amazing. Let me read to you her bio, and then I'm going to talk to you about this book. Phoenix Lefae is a professional tarot reader, root worker, teacher, and ritualist. She has been practicing witchcraft for almost 30 years, and her teachings are connected to the reclaiming tradition, druidry, and Gardnerian Wicca. She's also the owner of an esoteric goddess shop called Milk and Honey, and you can visit her at www.phoenixlefae.com. I think she's the only one who has the distinction of having come to our Witches Book Coven lives 3 times now. We've had 3 of her books, and she's amazing. She's a wonderful teacher. The book that she wrote was also amazing. So let's talk about it, and then we can go into the juicy things. So the table of contents, part 1 is being a rebel. Chapter 1 is join the rebellion. Chapter 2 is using this book, and chapter 3 is knowing thyself, which is a big theme here. Part 3 is being a witch, and chapter 4 is the witches, Circe, Anne Boleyn, and Marie Laveau. Part 3 is being the heretic. Chapter 8 is the heretics. Chapter 9 is Mary Magdalene. Chapter 10 is Jeanne d'Arc. And chapter 11 is Salome. Part 4 is being the warrior. Chapter 12 is the warrior women. Chapter 12 is Boudica. Chapter 14 is Moving Robe Woman. And chapter 15 is Harriet Tubman. And then there's a conclusion, acknowledgments, and recommended reading, and a bibliography. So if you watched the Booktube review for last week for Warrior Magic, I mentioned that when I made the choice to have these 2 books together, I had read them and instantly, and while I was reading them, I kept thinking, oh my God, did these 2 authors get together and make this plan where they were going to write these 2 books? They didn't, of course. They didn't know that the other person was writing the book. And the books are very different, but they feel like they go together really beautifully around the theme of warrior and heretic and owning the identity of a warrior and what that means as a witch. The book Warrior Magic spoke to this and touched on that topic in a much more detailed way, but from a bigger vantage point, a bigger picture. What this book does is it really speaks to what the internal work needs to be in order for you to be that person, in order for you to be a warrior, in order for you to be a true heretic, in order for you to be a witch. And I feel like these 2 books went well in that way, because you have one book that covers the broader picture, the takeaways that Tomas gave us, which were strategic morsels of wisdom in terms of how to move energy, how to create and manifest in the world in a very practical and strategic way. Whereas this book is all about the internal journey, and that knowing thyself theme is deep within all of these, while still giving us these beautiful profiles of these rebellious, heretical, warrior witch women in history. It's a great book. I really enjoyed the fact that she also chose to give us these profiles on women that are not necessarily witches, but they were, right? As well as a variety of different women from different cultures and different times. Circe is probably the only one, if I'm not mistaken, who is more of a mythological, deified person or entity or spirit. But the book just covered so many amazing things, and every single ritual and every single work in this book is deeply rooted in personal, deep self-transformation, which is so critical. I loved the book. I loved the women that she chose to highlight here. The rituals that she shared, I think, are incredibly transformative and really important, especially when used through the lens of having read about that particular woman and their life and the work that they did, or the change that they did, or the power that they wielded. I loved it, and she did a beautiful job. The research is there. I highly recommend it. It brought up questions, because when I sent out these 2 books, it's always interesting to me what you are all comfortable with questioning or sharing publicly, as opposed to what you reach out to me to share or ask. And one of the things that I got asked privately through email was this discomfort around the term warrior. Like, that's a little too aggressive. And, aren't we beyond that? And love and light and all the things and peace and love. And I really kind of enjoyed feeling the discomfort that was out there when these books were sent, because it's an important discomfort to sit in. At the time that I'm recording this video, there is some horrific shit going on the planet. We've had another country invaded. There's a lot of violence going on. And there is conflict within us, partly because we don't live in an environment in which we are under threat of attack. But being a warrior does not necessarily always have to be about actual physical violence. Being a warrior can very simply be someone who stands up for your rights or the rights of others, or for justice, or for life, for dignity, for these things. There's a very real witch warrior archetype there that I feel gets very neglected in a world where bypassing is kind of the fad and the trend and the thing that we would rather do than be in the discomfort of fighting for something that we believe in. And so I found those questions and that discomfort interesting. I think that discomfort is important, that there is transformation to be found in sitting in your discomfort. When I think about what it really means to be a warrior or a heretic or a witch, we stand outside of the common overculture. We really focus predominantly on what our relationship is in connection to everything that exists and how we affect that and how we are affected by that. We think in terms of the seen and the unseen. We do healing work even if we don't consider ourselves healers, because the minute we walk in the room, we shift that room just by virtue of the energy that we hold. And we understand this and we work towards this and we work to growing our capacity for this. That stands us out, right? We're off to the side. And oftentimes witchcraft historically has been the practice of the downtrodden, right? The outliers, the marginalized, because they needed a way to find power in their lives to change their circumstances, because they had external forces that were keeping them from having an actualized life the way they really wanted to. That's not necessarily always the case anymore in modern times. But know that you're an outlier. There is nowhere in the world right now where you can stand and say, I'm a witch, and still not have someone look at you like, you're a little off. Being a witch is very popular now. We're very out, particularly in countries like the United States, where still seemingly we have freedom of religion, where I'm not going to get fired because this is my business, but most people aren't going to get fired for their beliefs at this point. Some will, especially with what you say on the internet. But it's not as dangerous as it used to be. But you're still a heretic. You're still a rebel. You're still an outlier. And so considering that, along with the notion of then being a warrior for the things that you stand for, it's a very powerful combination, a combination that if we are in constant resistance to, we may disempower ourselves. I think that it's an important exploration that needs to be done, by every one of us. I certainly feel that at this point in my life, I am much more warrior than I am not, in my own way. That can look like it needs to look for you. What are you willing to fight for? And what is your magic? Like, what is the bigger picture? We've been talking a lot about the bigger picture in our Moon Ritual Coven for the month of February and now into March. In terms of what is the bigger picture of your life about? What is that about? What is the mission of your life? What is the purpose of your life? And throughout the course of doing that excavation, understanding that there are things that you stand for, and that when you stand for things, sometimes you're going to get challenged. And are you a fighter? Would you fight for that? It doesn't have to be violent. It can be magical. It can be an attitude. It can be in the space that you hold. It can be in the boundaries that you set. This book has examples of women who took these roles on and who were the embodiment of these roles. And it gives you examples of what that looked like magically, as well as societally and culturally magically, right? So I loved it. I loved it for that exploration. I loved it for the question that brought to the table. I loved this book because of the discomfort that it caused in some of you, because I think in those moments of discomfort, we can have growth. and we can take that opportunity to ask ourselves the harder questions so that we learn ourselves more. So beautiful. She did a beautiful job. I didn't read to you the subtitle. I'll read it to you now. Ignite Your Rebel Spirit Through Magic and Ritual. It's so good. I really recommend it. At the time that I'm making this video, we have a handful of these book bundles left. We may not actually by the time this video actually goes live, but if we do, the link will be down below. These two books come together along with the link to the recording when we had both Tomas Prower and Phoenix Lefae join us for a Witch Book Coven when we got together and talked about these books. So you get the two books and you get that video as well. So there's that. If you've read it, if you were part of that group and you're in this journey of really excavating what warrior means for you or to you, I'd love to hear about that down below in the comment section. And then I will see you next week with another book. That's it. Take care.